See?
Oh, yeah, it's certainly
Okay.
recording.
Yes.
All good.
Okay, great. So thank you for being there today. Thank you to Neil. Hi, Neil, and we are very delighted to have you with us today for sure. We're going to discuss the specifics of buying properties in Spain. And first of all, maybe you can start giving us your background and tell us who you are.
I'll give you a brief background because
Sure.
my story is a long one. I come from the southeast of England originally, from a place called Rochester, which is halfway between Dover and London. As I told you, I have a love affair of Spain that started when I was 16, and I came into Spanish property from being a financial advisor and attending shows offering financial advice for people to buy it in Spain. And the developer from the show asked if I would be interested in promoting properties because I seem to understand things quite well. I first did that in the early noughties from 2001 to 2005, and then moved to Spain 11 and a half years ago. So here I am living just outside of Benidorm.
Any regrets?
No,
Ah.
No.
no. I have not been back to England for 8 years. So,
Oh,
Wow.
no.
And where are you from in England previously?
Rochester.
Rochester. Okay.
It's one of the oldest towns in England. It has a Norman castle, a Norman cathedral, and the school that I went to, when they demolished it, when they moved our school, they found a Roman villa underneath the school building. So it's got it's a very historical town.
Lovely.
It's where Charles Dickens lived.
Right. So, Benidorm. Why Benidorm?
Why?
I was invited by an agent to come back to Spain to try and help them bring them into the 21st century. Benidorm is sort of a melting pot for the Costa Blanca North. And at that time, the British market was just starting again, and a lot of the agents hadn't got any English-speaking staff because they'd let them all go after the crash in 2008. So I came back and was originally working for someone, but shall we say he did not play very well with others. So I was asked to join another company and went self-employed, and I've stayed in Benidorm, although now I would say more of my business is towards Javier Maria further up the coast, and also in the town next to Benidorm called Villajoyosa.
Okay.
Okay. And do you have a specialization?
I probably specialise as a buyer's agent,
Okay.
not a personal shopper. That's something a little bit different. But as a buyer's agent, people will often contact you, and when you speak to them, they start to give you an idea of what they're really looking for. And they may have booked or started to think about booking with 3 or 4 other agents, arrive in Spain and find out that those agents haven't got the properties they thought they had. So I've built up an idea that best place is to go through me. I can contact those agents, but also I find that you understand more about what people are looking for by spending time with them. And it's not always what they tell you, it's what they don't say.
Mm-hmm.
You can pick up things that people are looking, and maybe you can find the right property for them. So it means collaborating, it means splitting commission, but it's built me a business the best way I can say was on my 60th birthday, 16 of my clients from the UK flew over to Spain to celebrate my birthday with me. So I must have done the job well.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a mid-measure service that you offer.
Yeah. Obviously, I do list my own properties, but being the Englishman in Benidorm, I tend to get properties from people I've either sold to previously or English people that want an English agent to deal with the sale, and quite often Belgians and Dutch as well, because their second language is English, and they find that I'm probably less pushy than some of the Dutch agents.
Okay.
And I don't try to sell them what I have. I try to find them what they want to buy. Yeah. I think that's the biggest difference.
And before going further on what you just said, can you give us a little overview on the Spanish real estate process?
Yeah, the Spanish real estate process is quite simple as long as you understand the Spanish, really. The first thing that everybody needs to know is if you're a non-Spanish resident, you have to have something called an NIE number before you can go ahead and buy the property, which is basically a non-resident tax identification number. Okay. And you can't buy a property, you can't buy a car. In some cases, you can't even have things delivered from an electrical store without an NIE number. So that's quite important. The second thing, obviously, is they need to open a Spanish bank account. So I try to advise people at the start, if you've not got an NIE number, start applying for that whilst we're looking for property for you, because it will make everything a lot simpler. If you find a property in Spain that you like and you make an offer, if that offer is accepted, we normally expect a 3,000 euros reservation fee within 48 hours. Right. That way the seller feels comfortable and we can take the property off the market for a 10-day to 2-week period. After that, we then do a private contract between the buyer and the seller, which is called an arras contract. And with that, they have to pay a 10% deposit. And that 10% deposit is not refundable unless there is something serious happens on the buyer's side. And if the vendor pulls out, they have to pay up to double that back to the buyer. Mm-hmm. So for us, it secures the property, and we very seldom lose a sale because most people don't want to lose a 10% deposit, and the vendor doesn't want to pay back double.
Sure.
Presumably, if you don't get the loan that you're needing in order to buy the property, presumably that 10% is refunded to you.
Yeah, they have to make clear that they haven't yet applied for a mortgage. If they tell me at the start that they're looking for a mortgage, we have an international mortgage company that will do an agreement in principle. Right. So we'll tell them what they can borrow up to. So we're normally quite secure. Some buyers, if we tell them they're buying with some vendors, sorry, if we tell them they're buying with a mortgage, can be a little bit, I'd rather have somebody that can go ahead quicker. But I would think in my time, only 20% of the buyers have ever had a mortgage.
Oh, wow. Okay. What kind of price range do you deal with, Neil?
It used to be from 80,000. I would probably say from about 140,000 to 5 million.
Right. Okay.
But one thing, you can do a private contract with the ARAS, and with a private contract, you can change the rule of the lady, not the rule from the country. You can use your rule because you do a private contract. In Catalonia, you can do it. I don't know if in Benidorm you can do it, but some parts of Spain, no, the customers have more protection.
The customers have protection as long as they tell us that, one, they're going for a mortgage, so that is then put into the private purchase contract. And it states on our contracts that if the deposits will only be refunded if there is a major problem for either buyer or a seller. So if somebody dies, if there is if there was a flood, for instance, like there was in Valencia, something like that. But in the majority of cases, no, they're not that protected, but they enter to it. And most buyers, I will make sure they've got legal representation. They will let them know that if you are signing this contract, you are stating that you will go ahead with the purchase. And in 15 years, I don't know one contract that hasn't gone through.
Okay.
Okay.
So you do a lot of interagency work, Neil. Can you tell us how that works within the process?
Yes. Well, the first thing I found was to try and find agencies that you could work with.
Mm-hmm.
The Spanish, when I first arrived, still have a little desire for cash to be involved in the purchase. And quite often international buyers are very wary of, well, pay 30,000 in cash. That will reduce the taxes you pay, because quite often it doesn't, because the tax office will come after you later and say you paid too less for the property. So I've established a group of agents in different towns that I would always go to first. And the majority of Spanish agents will collaborate, because there will be certain agents that will have buyers for their property that maybe they've had for a period of time, or if you bring someone to them that is in a position to go ahead straight away, they would much rather do that than sit with the property for maybe another 3-4 weeks. But the majority of Spanish agents have 5% commission, sometimes 4%. Others with lower commissions often won't collaborate,
Mm-hmm.
because there's not enough money, so they want you to add on to the price, and I won't do that unless I've spoken to my buyers and said my services are going to cost you X amount. Otherwise, I deal with agents that work properly.
Mm-hmm.
Probably in the last 5 years, 50% of my sales have been through collaboration, because it's impossible to have all the properties in such a big area available. And people come sometimes and they want something specific and they need a different area to the one that I'm based in. Villa Hyosa became very popular. Javier and Mariah have become very popular. So I have contact with agents based in those areas. And the system works pretty much the same. They just issue the ARAS contract rather than me issuing the ARAS contract. I look after the buyer's welfare, and that agency looks after the seller's welfare. And personally, and I would say 80% of Spanish agents would rather have 50% of something rather than 100% of nothing.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we all think about that.
Well, I get the feeling there's some that don't. They seem to, I think you have to broaden your outlook sometimes. You might have 6 properties listed, but if you're in an area and someone's looking for a property in that area, then to me, it's much better approaching other agents that might have a more suitable property, because at least you're getting a sale. And if you do a good job, those people are your best forms of advertising, because they'll give you referrals.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that I would like to buy a property in Spain. Can you give me some practice tips?
First, be very honest with your budget. It's no good somebody coming to me and saying I've got 200,000 euros to spend when really they've got 300,000. Also, I'll always explain the costs involved so you know what your total purchase will be. Secondly, buy for yourself. A lot of people at one time were buying 2 or 3 bedroom apartments so the grandchildren could come and visit, or the family could come and visit. After the first visit, having grandchildren for 2 weeks doesn't become such a joy. And they always say to me, oh, we should have listened to you, Neil. We should have bought a 1-bedroom apartment and get them to stay somewhere else. So I do think that's quite important, because some people, that is their thing. We've got to buy so the family can come. And families normally visit for 3 days, not 2 weeks. 2 weeks of family staying next to the sea and wanting to eat at different times suddenly becomes a nightmare. Be honest about what you want as an environment. Some people want, Benidorm is a 12-month-a-year entertainment centre. But if you're coming out of season, make sure you get to find out whether the place is open after October, November. There are still seaside resorts in Spain that come October, 50% of the bars close, and it looks like a high street from a US Western. There's no one around. And I think they're the main things, and also what amenities you need. Do you want a communal swimming pool? A lot of people say they'd like a swimming pool, and then after 5 years, they tell me they've used the pool once. So is it as important as being close to the beach? Is walking important? It tends to be much more for the British, because when they get here, they're not used to driving on the other side of the road. So they like to be able to walk to bars and restaurants. That's always the most important thing for them. So it's a matter of combining, because you're not buying in a town that you're not buying for your children to go to school, or maybe you are, but most people are looking to buy a lifestyle. So you need to choose the sort of lifestyle that you want. Do I want to be able to walk here? Do I need to be so close to the beach that in the summer it's too busy to park the car, or it's more noisy than I really want? So that's part of my job. I ask those questions that sometimes people don't expect, so that I can find out, and then I'll say to you, I think I know where you need to be. And when they come out, that's what I do, is I take them to different areas so they can see where they want. Do you want real Spain? I used to get Brits that say, oh, I want to be a little bit more in a Spanish town, and I want to be close to the orange grove. So you take them, and the first reaction was, very Spanish, isn't it? Well, yeah, congratulations. That's what you asked for. And sometimes the Spanish will come to Benidorm and they want certain parts of Benidorm. As we were speaking last week, surprisingly enough, the highest number of visitors to Benidorm every year are the Spanish. And they own most of the holiday homes. And a lot from us. Sorry.
No, so I was going to ask you, Neil, you said that you have properties ranging from like 150,000 to 5 million. What types of properties can we expect to see on your portfolio? Do you specialize in new builds, or more old builds, or plots, or?
I don't specialize in new builds, but I am very keen on promoting new builds for 2 reasons. One, if I'm collaborating with someone like yourself, then the commission's very good. But also the quality of new build in Spain is amazing now. It is very, very high quality. I also try to find what I class as key ready, so new builds that are completely finished, because that's a benefit to people that want a new build but don't want to wait 18 months for it to be built. But
I just ask something on that, actually,
yes.
Because in France, when you buy a new build, you don't have a kitchen included in that. You have to add your kitchen. Is that the same in Spain?
Some developers, yes. Other developers will make a big thing that there's a fully fitted kitchen, the air conditioning's included, underfloor heating's included.
Right.
And we just make sure that people are aware of what they're getting when they buy it. And quite often the builders will offer packs so that someone can work out how much they've got to spend to have the kitchen fitted, to have electric blinds, for instance. But some of the better developers, no, they're all completely fitted kitchens and everything else.
Okay. And does it the same of, for example, Mexico? where when you buy an apartment in a new building, you can ask for a fully furnished apartment.
You can. Some places, if they're key ready, will fully furnish them. Others will offer a furniture pack as an addition to the price. And if they've got 2 or 3 properties left to sell, that's a negotiating point sometimes if they want to sell those properties and move on to another development. I do also resale properties, because sometimes your budget or where you want to be will dictate that it's a resale property that you're going to have to buy. If you want to be near the beach, it's not often that you're going to find villas or houses near the beach, because they were built 30 or 40 years ago and now they're moving back from the beach. If you want to have a holiday home specifically to be close to the beach and close to all the entertainment, then you will need to buy a resale property. But I also offer a full refurbishment package. So if they want a property refurbished, we can get a quote for them, and I've got builders and plumbers that will do all that sort of work as well.
And I guess that's what you meant by the one-stop shop.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, funny enough, that's what I called myself when I first started 23 years ago, was the Spanish one-stop shop. But the Spanish couldn't say it, so I had to change the name. It was sort of like they looked at me as much to say, what? But because you're selling to international buyers, whether they be European, UK, American, people are going to need things done, because they're not going to be here to come and refurbish their property. Some people want to do it, but then they find out it's difficult. They don't know where to go to buy the things, so we offer that service. But what I also try to offer is all those after sales things that you need, a HESTOR or an accountant to do your taxes and to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. Get your utilities changed. Furniture. I work with a couple of furniture shops that work with Spanish furniture companies, and they will guarantee days of delivery, and I'll take the delivery for the people as well and make sure it's assembled. So when they come the next time, their apartment's just ready for them, and all they've got to do is put the bedclothes on there. I've got some information on how to get into the schools if people are relocating completely. And I just think that if you can do that and take people, I call it holding someone's hand throughout the process. So from the minute I meet them, and hopefully 5 years after, because funny enough, I've just been dealing with someone that I sold something to 6 years ago and they've got a problem. I can offer that service, and they know that if something goes wrong, if a partner dies or there's a major problem with the apartment, they know who to come to get things done.
That's brilliant.
Sure.
I don't think I answer every problem, but normally if I can't, I have somebody that can.
You can.
I've got a
Take
translator.
approximately to get your NIE number.
Well, it used to be very easy, but they decided to do everything online, and some people with bots hijacked it. You can do it in about 4 to 6 weeks in your own country from the consulate, which I quite often suggest is a way to go ahead. You can go on to the consulate website, you can download the forms, you can fill them in and send them to the consulate. And as long as you fill them in correctly, and I'll go through that with you as well, you can get an appointment within 3 or 4 weeks, and then 2 weeks after the appointment, you should get your NIE number. So I sometimes say to people, as you start in the process, it's going to cost you a trip to Manchester or a trip to Paris or a trip to wherever the consulate is, and €20. Well, even if you don't end up buying, it's not going to cost you a lot of money. Whereas if you don't do it, we've got to probably get you to do a power of attorney and get somebody else to apply for you, and it can end up costing you €150. So, to me, again, just those little bits of advice. The internet is sometimes our enemy as well as our friend, because there's so many advice sites on the internet telling you what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and you should always have this. And I read them sometimes, and I think, well, who told you that? So ask the person that you're working with.
Mm.
Okay. And what about the process duration in Spain? How long it takes to buy a house or an apartment?
Quickest I've done it is 10 days.
Well,
And the average is about 2 months.
okay.
And that's normally because people are getting their currency sorted out and transferring it to their Spanish bank, and also so that the buyers and the sellers can be in the same place at the same time, because everything's done at the notary. Sometimes they'll give their lawyer or me power of attorney, but I actually prefer the people to be here because I like the process of sitting at the notary's desk, them handing the checks over and the owners handing the keys over, and it's almost sort of that little personal touch, and they feel this is my home now. I've got the keys. I can go and have a look at my apartment in an hour.
So when you say hand the check over, do you literally mean hand the check over?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you go to the bank and get a banker's draft or a banker's check, take it to the notary, and the Spanish still like to feel that piece of paper in their hand.
Okay.
Spanish money laundering is quite strict. So if you want to do a bank transfer to the vendor, it has to go through the Bank of Spain.
Right.
And then it has to go to either the notary, or you have to then make sure that they have the bank has transferred it to the Bank of Spain and the signature. And a lot of people would prefer that they can see the money in their hand rather than, yes, it's at the Bank of Spain, but it hasn't got to your account yet, because would you leave, you know, I'm not giving the keys over until I know the money's in my account. So most notaries still prefer a banker's check because they can say it's been done on that day.
Wow. Okay. That's
That's always, people do ask, can we transfer the money? And I just always say to them, it's difficult. It
Just
can be
one
done.
thing. One thing, just in Spain, the problem is that the notary is not sufficient to protect the buyer. In some cases, you need to necessarily to call a lawyer to answer all the conformity of the sale, because the notary don't do the same thing that in French, and you need to control that. You can have some problem.
Yes, and as I say, the big problem has been that having to go through the Bank of Spain. We had one occasion when we were in the notary signing and everything was being signed, so we phoned Sabadell to say, okay, do the transfer now and send us the confirmation of the transfer. And they said, I'm sorry, he's gone for his coffee. Okay.
We'll wait then.
Yeah, that wasn't quite what I said, but so sometimes it's just for that instant gratification, and sometimes it's because a lot of the properties we sell, especially in Benidorm, are inheritances. And the way Spanish law works as well is the husband and wife own 50% of the property each. It's not joint ownership. So you quite often have to give him a check and her a check.
Right.
So with bank transfers, it means transferring to two separate accounts. Or on my last sale in the centre of Benidorm, it was 5 different siblings. So it's much easier to have 5 checks and them to go like that rather than trying to transfer the money to 5 different bank accounts instantly. It just doesn't always work very well.
So during the Laure has done a number of these little interviews, and on one of the last interviews we were looking at the process in England on how to buy a property. And of course in England we talk about structural surveys. In France we have diagnostics on the health, if you like, of the property. What do you have in Spain?
If they're buying with a mortgage, they'll always get a survey.
Right.
If they're buying an apartment in a gated urbanisation, a survey is not really going to spot anything, because your ceiling is someone else's floor, your floor is somebody else's ceiling, and the external part of the property is insured by the community or the administration that looks after the whole block. You have to have a second habitation certificate, which means a surveyor comes in and checks that everything's connected to the utilities correctly and that everything is as it should be for a property to be handed over. Normally in Spain, surveys would be done on detached villas if requested. It's not standard.
By whom?
By the buyer.
By the buyer.
And always would be done if someone's buying what we call a finca, a country property. But
Property, sorry?
a finca, which is a property in the countryside, normally on a plot of more than 10,000 square meters.
Right.
So that will now be checked, especially because a lot of them were built in the early 21st century with brown envelopes and sort of not connected to the water and not properly connected to the electricity and with septic tank drainage.
Right.
So we are quite strict on those. But with the majority of the sales being in gated urbanizations, we tend to find that most people don't even look at having a survey done because the urbanization is maintained by the administration. Even the villas on a lot of places are done the same way.
Okay.
So we don't often get survey reports, as I say, unless they're detached or they're buying with a mortgage.
Right. And the survey would be done by the bank.
Done by the bank surveyor, unless it's done as a private one, and then we would find a surveyor that would do it. But as I say, because they have the technical study done for the second habitation certificate and the energy certificate, most people are comfortable with that because they've got two lots of paperwork to say that we've inspected it, we've checked it, everything works as it should do, and that the community is up to date and everything's been done on the community, because they are responsible for the maintenance of the external part of the building, and anything to do with the foundations or the communal areas. So people don't worry quite so much in that sense.
Excuse me, I just will say something in French because it's more easy for me, and Kayla or Laure will translate for you.
Okay.
En Espagne, en fait, ce qui est pour un acheteur, ce qui est vraiment important, c'est s'il a la possibilité de faire un prêt une fois qu'il a obtenu un NEA. C'est idéal de faire un prêt bancaire parce que la banque va envoyer un tassalor, on appelle ça le taxeur, le tassalor, pour faire l'évaluation du bien, du prix. Et le tassalor, il va donner l'autorisation ou pas de faire le prêt s'il estime que le prix est bien valable. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, ça va suppléer un petit peu au notaire qui, lui, fait vraiment un travail qui est basique, qui est juste l'écriture pour l'État et encaisser l'argent, quoi. Et un vendeur étranger, quand il va revendre son bien et quelqu'un d'autre va l'acheter, il va en plus payer 3% directement chez le notaire du prix de vente. Et à lui de faire ensuite tout son calcul par rapport aux 19% de la plus-value. Parce qu'en fait, pour éviter que les étrangers s'en aillent direct, ils font payer directement à la source, à la vente, 3%.
Okay.
Voilà.
Merci, Pascal. Laure, did you want to translate that?
I'll let you do. You will do it. You will do it better than I.
Okay, so so Pascal was just kind of raising the fact that it can often be quite advantageous to have a mortgage, because the bank sends a taxateur.
Ouais, on dit le taxateur.
Yeah, somebody who comes to estimate the property. So
en espagnol, el tasador.
And they kind of like do that profound check, which a notaire doesn't necessarily do.
No, the only people that tend to buy with mortgages are, funny enough, the Germans. I haven't had any dealings with the French that have bought with mortgages, but then I've only sold to 2 French so far. People from the UK used to, but the problem in Spain is for a lot of people is that it's a 30% deposit minimum. Sometimes when you add the taxes, that can add up to 44%. So when you talk about mortgages to the British, especially, they're used to getting a 90% mortgage. But when you say you're really not going to get more than 60%, they'd rather remortgage and buy cash over here. I do try to encourage people, especially with the mortgage rates as they are in Spain at the moment, at around 2.4, that it makes sense to buy with a mortgage and use only 50% of your capital rather than all of your capital. But the Spanish second home market, they're quite adverse, shall we say, at using mortgages. It's another thing that records their presence in the sort of Spanish mind. And now I think with the relocation more will, but you'll also find people who are looking to buy high net worth villas, they're in a position to go ahead and pay cash. They don't want to tie up 2 million in a mortgage to buy a 4 million property. So I agree that makes sense, but it's steering people down the right path that are not used to having such a low loan to value mortgage.
Interest rates. And so when you say 2.4% interest rates today, is that on a fixed mortgage or is that a variable?
There are fixed mortgages about 2.7, 2.4s on the 2 years and then variable, but the variable is very low at the moment as well.
Okay.
So, but again, that's why I use Mortgages Direct that are a specialist in expat mortgages and speak 5 or 6 European languages, so they can help to pick the best mortgage for people buying for what they want to buy. So, yeah, I think 3 sales I've done with mortgages. That's all, though.
Okay, so really few.
Yeah.
Je peux refaire un commentaire en français. Il y a en plus un avantage avec les banques considérable si tu prends tous les services, que ce soit les assurances, etc. Ils te font encore descendre beaucoup plus les taux. Et au bout d'1 an ou 2 ans, tu te passes des services, mais tu as obtenu ton taux fixe très bas. C'est une astuce en Espagne que peu de gens connaissent, quoi. Il faut vraiment prendre les services de la banque associés avec le prêt qu'elle va proposer. Alors là, tu bats tous les records. Avant, il y a...
Pascal is saying, pardon-moi de traduire. Pascal is saying that it's often advantageous to, if you are going to take a mortgage, to use the bank's services such as insurance, because you might attract an even lower or more preferential rate by using those services, and further down the line, perhaps 12 months later, you can cancel those services and still benefit from the low interest rates. So for him, that's a little.
That's normally what I do when they first. I use Sabadell most of the time because they're probably the best in the north of the Costa Blanca for having various languages in their branches, and also their online banking translates very well, which I think is quite important nowadays. So I always say to people, look, take the insurance with Sabadell for the first year, go through them for your health insurance, because if you're going to relocate, you're going to need health insurance because you don't qualify for the Spanish health insurance if you're non-EU. Yes, I would always agree with that. It just depends on who the best bank is for their specific needs when they're taking out a mortgage.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding notary fees, because in France, depending you're buying new building apartment or already built, the notary fees are different. For, let's say, a whole building, it's between 7-8%, and regarding new ones, it's around 3%. What
No,
is the
here,
rules in Spain?
In Spain, it's the same for all.
no. Actually, the Spanish is if you're buying a resale property, the property transfer tax is 10%. Well, in my area, it can be 6% in other regions, but it's between 6 and 10%. And then if it's a new build, there's another 1% added onto that because you're paying IVA or VAT,
Yeah.
and then there's the transfer tax. The notary fees very seldom come above 2%.
Okay.
And then you have the land registry fees, which is normally around 1% of the property value. Depends how many pages they have to transcribe of the title deeds. And then you will have what they call the notary legal charges if they've done certain things on the behest of the buyer to check, make sure that the local taxes are up to date and everything else like that. I always say to people with a resale property, your total costs will be around 12.5%
On top of your property value.
of the total purchase price of the property. So 100,000, it's 12,500 euros on top. And if it's a new build, between 13.5% and 14%.
Interesting. So just worthy of note, just because this video is going to potentially reach people who are not present here today, when Laure mentions notary fees, actually it's not just notary fees, it's the legal fees. So in France we have 8% legal fees, but we do call them notary fees, which is like a little bit misleading.
No, that's something I always call them. I call them purchase fees.
Yeah.
Because 10% of it or 6% of it, whichever region you're in, is actually local property transfer tax.
Yeah.
The legal fees are probably no more than 2%, 2.5%. So that's where that comes in. And even then, land registry, yeah, legal, I suppose. So I would say 2.5% legal fees, and the rest is taxation.
Okay. We've got about 10 minutes left. Is there any, I have another question, but I would like other people to see whether there's any other questions that, no? Should I go ahead?
You have
Okay.
questions? Tell your questions.
So if let's say I have 300,000 euros, okay?
Yes.
300,000 euros that I would like to invest. Can you tell me what I can get for that? And if it's in a shared accommodation where I have a shared pool, what kind of monthly costs does that kind of property generate?
Okay, so 300,000 would give you a budget of 270, let's say 280,000 plus your taxes, because there's always a little bit of room for. I've actually got at that price at the moment a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, first floor apartment, 1 bathroom ensuite. It's got what I call a year-round terrace. It's been glazed, but it can be fully opened up. An underground parking space, communal pool, children's pool, tennis courts and gardens.
Wow.
550 meters from the beach. And the communal fees, the community fees are 90 euros a month.
Okay.
And then the local taxes, your property tax is around 420 euros a year.
Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. Okay.
And you could buy in other areas a semi-detached house. It really does depend on where you want to be, but anything from a semi-detached house in a slightly more inland area, or you could buy, again, as I say, apartments, or you could buy a townhouse maybe in Javier, and you'd be about 2.5 kilometres from the beach, but walking distance of all amenities.
Okay, and of course, if you have a townhouse, you don't have any community fees.
No, you'd only pay your local authority taxes, and on a townhouse in a town like Javier, you're probably talking €300 a year for your taxes.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
So there's still some really attractive sounding properties that can be bought for interesting money.
Yeah, I mean, we seem to think that the prices have gone up a lot, but it's a matter of researching. I would say in the 300,000 budget, I could find you a very good selection of properties close to the sea, or walking distance to all amenities that are pretty much ready to walk into.
I'd love to know what a 5 million property would bring me, but I think
5 bedrooms, 9 bathrooms, set
Wow.
over 3 floors, 630 square meters build, with an outdoor pool, an indoor pool, a sauna,
Wow.
and stunning sea views, in an urbanite, well, a resort development that's also got its own supermarket,
wow.
a top quality restaurant, paddle and tennis club, access to a beach within a kilometre, pharmacy, medical centre, hairdressers, and about 3 other restaurants. So yeah. Oh, and an international school.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay. Wow.
That's amazing. I have just a little bit question regarding the legal restriction. I mean, is the regulation is the same all over Spain, or does it exist differences between?
Well, Catalonia is a little bit different, but that's to say the least. As I say, different regions will have different property transfer tax. So I think Murcia, for instance, is 8%. I think Huesca is 6%. So they've basically based it on demand. So the Costa Blanca has always been 10%. I think all of Valencia is 10% purchase tax. Everything else is very much the same. And if you are an EU national, that's how it would work for everybody. So the only thing you need is how long you're going to be in the country for. So if you're going to be here permanently or more than 183 days of the year, then you have to register for taxes in Spain. You still need to register for taxes if you're not going to be here, because there is a non-resident tax on all properties, which is about 0.2% of the property value. So it's not big, but it was brought in originally by the Spanish because they knew people from overseas were probably going to rent their apartments out in the summer holidays. So if they took a bit of tax off them, it covered the fact that people were renting out and not paying any taxes. That's changed a lot. Buying as an investment in Spain is still okay, but you have to be careful of the area. For instance, Malaga has just stopped all new tourist licenses. Alicante City, Valencia, and Barcelona have all stopped all new tourist licenses as well. So that's something else that you need someone, not just me, but someone to guide you through the process. I mean, I don't know. I've probably talked a lot, but the one thing I would say is that, you know, this is important, the collaboration side of things, because, you know, there is not just for buying in Spain, but the Spanish tend not to buy very much outside of Spain, because if they do, they tend to buy on the Canary Islands, or they'll buy in Andalusia if they live in the south, or they buy in the south if they live in Andalusia, so they can have year-round climate. But I get approached by other people. People may be looking to buy in France. People may be looking to buy in Portugal. And I think at the moment we've probably got to stop looking inwards and start thinking, well, there's possibilities there. You know, I've got 820,000 villas on a resort with a lagoon, man-made beach, 9-hole golf course, everything else, and they're paying 10% commission.
And Neil, I think what would be amazing is for you to send us the links to those lagoons, so that when we're kind of dispatching this video, we can also give people really easy access to your email address, so that they can contact you should they want to either purchase in Spain.
We will share that, sure, Kyla. I will add it into the record.
Yeah.
I did send some links
already.
to
I
Laura.
already received the links, and I also have the email address of Neil. I just want, for the 5 minutes left, just to ask if someone have questions or not, because I get one last question.
For me, it's okay, because I know the market, because I spent 12 years in Barcelona, buy, sell.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
You're lucky. So my last question is, if I want to become a real estate agent in Spain, what do I need to do?
Do you mean with EXP?
Not only, in general.
Again, depends on the area. In Valencia now, you have to be licensed, the Valencia region, so you need to study for passing the exam to become a licensed real estate agent in Mobiliaria. Other areas, unfortunately, are not quite so. So you would join a brokerage, would be the first thing I would say. It's very difficult starting on your own if you don't know too much. Some people are natural salespeople and are good with people. So if you can speak Spanish and English or another language, or you go to an area like the Costa Blanca South or the Costa del Sol, you could probably survive without speaking great Spanish. As 3 or 4 people have said to me over the last 3 or 4 months, if you've got a Swedish, a French, a German, an English estate agent all sat together, they'll be speaking English.
Yeah.
Because
you have got a big team working with you, Neil.
No, I haven't.
Right.
I haven't.
You recruit.
Very difficult in the Costa Blanca.
Right.
Not really something to go into great, but it's a completely different market to selling in what I would call rural or urban, suburban Spain.
Okay.
The Costa Blanca, the Costa Calida, the Costa del Sol, you need a completely different set of resources and probably a slightly different mentality as well. You've got to be prepared to travel a bit. You've got to be prepared to collaborate more. And you've also sometimes got to be prepared to say to people, look, I'm sorry, but what you want at the price you want to pay doesn't exist.
Mm.
And I have done that. You know, sometimes I actually say to people, look, I'd like to be 35 years old again, but that's not going to happen either. You know, and they prefer that because they're not spending time being agents going, oh, we've got this, but I know where that property is and I wouldn't take my wife's mother there. You know, it's sort of, it's, you know, you just know. So for me, I think that's something that I always make a point about. You need to be brutally honest sometimes. You know, no, you won't be able to buy there, but I know where you can buy.
That's wonderful, Neil. I hope we get to collaborate together.
I hope so too.
And,
I've enjoyed it.
And I'm sure you'll get many people contact you to either find out more about becoming a real estate agent in Spain, or wanting your services, your one-stop shop, for their purchasing
Yeah, sure.
in
Yeah.
Canada. So thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Kyla. We want to thank you all, and especially Neil, for being with us and for your time you shared with us. Thank you also for your explanation and helpful tips. We learned a lot. If you are looking to invest in Spain or become an agent, as you said, Kyla, you can contact Neil. And thank you, Kyla. Thank you, all of you. Have a good day.
Thank
A
you very
good
much,
end
both.
of day for us, but
I
maybe
hope I was informative without talking too much.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
thank
Thank you for your
you.
time.
Thank
you very
you. Have a
much.
good day.
Have
Thank
a
you.
Have a
good
good
day
day.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 That was good.
Yeah. Just want to stop the. Hop. Arrêter.